Now, locally, Minister of Mineral and Petroleum Resources, Gwede Mantashe's proposal around the promotion of beneficiation, which includes the introduction of export taxes, has been met with opposition from the Minerals Council SA. The body CEO, Mzila Mthenjane, joins us now to dig through their concerns. Thank you so much for your time, Zila. Now, let's actually start off with those suggestions that have come from government. And do they seem more punitive rather than incentivizing?
So thank you very much for the opportunity to comment on this issue. And I think it's an issue that comes at a very appropriate time when we do need investment in the economy, we need growth such that it leads to employment. The comments, I think it's important that they were mentioned during the minister's speech in Parliament. And in that, he mentioned some of the key enablers that are required for beneficiation in terms of electricity supply, security, and more importantly, the cost of electricity. And those are already challenges that any investor will face. But then to move on to export tax or any form of restriction for any mining company whose capability is extracting minerals with a view to supporting a market, that's a huge discouragement. And I think at this point in time, it's really not the language we wanting to hear, neither would be it domestic or offshore when we're so in desperate need of investment in the country and in mining in particular.
So I don't think it's up for debate that, of course, we do need to find ways to beneficiate here in South Africa. And I'm just keen to get your thoughts on that. Of course, sometimes a carrot, sometimes a stick. But I'm wondering also, if we've explored all the carrots that we possibly have in our baskets.
So let me clear one thing. Do you know how much beneficiation takes place in South Africa already? And in fact, how much beneficiation as a result of the negative impacts of infrastructure it's having on beneficiation? We're losing out on ferrochrome beneficiation, ferromanganese. We have lost out on production in gold and platinum, precious metals, because of issues of electricity. And so I don't think we should take this conversation on an assumption that there is no beneficiation, that all our commodities are being exported raw. Steel manufacturing, that's a huge industrialization commodity on the back of iron ore. So we're not saying that we don't want beneficiation, or certainly that we don't want any legislation. But beneficiation is something that is different to mining, and I think there needs to be a particular context that is provided for it in terms of incentives of some nature. But let's start with the basics. Make sure that the essential needs of being able to beneficiate, be it a commodity, be it agricultural products, are in place. And one of the points that I want to place a huge emphasis on is that I'm seeing and I'm hearing a lot of conversation about what we can do with these minerals. I'm not seeing sufficient conversation about enabling and making it easier to actually extract the minerals. So the conversation on critical minerals is great, but let's bear in mind that these minerals will be faced with exactly the same challenges that our existing mines are faced with. The entrepreneurs and explorers who need exploration for critical minerals will be faced with exactly the same challenges that current explorers and entrepreneurs in mining are facing. So I think we need to focus our conversation on the right things. Secondly, beneficiation needs to be in South Africa, particularly in medium to long term, and not necessarily, and also not targeting all minerals, but rather being specific around which commodities can we beneficiate, and that will maximize our competitive advantage and what we can get out of them.
Are we actually clear on that? Because it's also quite interesting that you say that beneficiation should also be focused on certain commodities. Do we have a clear agenda, clear economic agenda as a country to be able to get to that, where beneficiation is not across the board, but on certain things?
And that's the critical question.
Yeah.
And I don't think we do have a clear agenda. At the end of the day, any business that starts up with the view of providing a product or service to a market. So we need to be clear in terms of the commodities that we have. Where are the current markets? And I think as far as critical minerals are concerned, where are the future markets? We've been doing a significant work within the Minerals Council in terms of understanding where this global conversation of critical minerals is coming from and what is driving it. And it's largely driven by the first world countries, America, UK, Europe, and so on. And their critical mineral strategy is driven by the economic strategy in as far as what role are these minerals going to play in terms of military purposes, in terms of technology. And it is with that long-term view that you're then able to decide which minerals you need. And then they're talking about where we're going to get them from. And this is where the scramble for Africa is coming from. From a supply side perspective, as countries that will be supplying these minerals, we need to be clear in terms of the appropriateness of those markets, accessibility, and the long-term supply such that we minimize any risk of developing mines only to find that there's not a market that's going to last. And more importantly, what's going to be critical for South Africa and the rest of the continent around these strategies, what are the development opportunities? And so we need to match both the long-term needs of critical minerals to enable the transition, but I think also leading up to that, the development needs of the country. And the two need to be matched. But it needs to start with how do we extract the minerals from the ground first.
Yeah. With that said, I'm keen to find out why we don't have, a clear strategy here. We are seeing continuity in the Department of Mineral Resources. We know the Minerals Council, really represents a few big miners, and so the voices are all there. What is keeping us from getting the right strategy and the right, voices in the room for us to then, have some sort of a cohesive move towards how we treat our minerals?
No, that's a great question, and I think the formation of the Government of National Unity has really provided for a great platform for this conversation to take place. We've seen how it has inspired very positive sentiment if you look at where the bond markets are. And I can confidently say that amongst our members, we're very, very positive and want to be constructive in terms of the role that the mining industry can play in attracting investment in mining, in growing the economy and contributing to GDP. Investment in mining is an investment that will have an impact on downstream industries in terms of your secondary and tertiary. So we are at a point where we do need to have a very constructive conversation between Minerals Council and government, particularly the DMPR, in terms of saying where are the current constraints? And let's select 2 or 3 critical ones which will immediately unlock value and see that investment. And as we achieve success, we then move on to the next one. So we need to take more than just a 5-year term, but a 10, 20, 30-year term in terms of how the mining industry can make a contribution. And we'll begin to see beneficiation coming through strongly in those future years. But for now, given where we are, let's really make sure that we're able to extract our minerals safely, firstly, and then secondly, in the most efficient and cost-effective way so that the industry can grow and create the employment opportunities. We have many graduates who need employment, who are very capable and are very keen to contribute. We need to take advantage of the technology and innovation opportunities that are presenting themselves. And I think we are really fortunate to have the youth population that we have that is ready and willing and able to take advantage of these opportunities. And it can happen in mining.
Well, we do have to leave the conversation there, Mzila. Thank you so much for giving us insight into that very, very important topic. That was Mzila Mthenjane, CEO of the Minerals Council SA.